Let's come to order. Let's come to order. I'd like to welcome each one of you here this afternoon. At this time, if you'd please use your cell phones, you'd silence them or turn them off. Let's come to order.
They're going to have to quiet it.
You're quiet outside.
Gary, you're going to have to quiet them out there.
Quiet them outside in the hallway. If you please silence your cell phones or turn them off. This time, would you stand for the invocation and pledge, Mr. Commander?
Dear Heavenly Father, next week as we honor our veterans, those men and women who gave their best to serve our country and protect our rights and our freedoms, we ask that you give them a special blessing. We also ask that you will bless those here in attendance tonight, and you will guide this board in the best interest of the people of Walton County. And all these things we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's come to order. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For additions and deletions from the agenda, under the consent agenda will be item number 23. We're going to ask you to approve for the chair to sign an equitable sharing agreement and certification as requested by the Sheriff's Office. Under Public Works, authorize the chair to sign a letter designating environmental needs for Alligator, Eastern, and Western Coastal Dune Lakes. The county attorney will ask for you to ratify a ratification of pending litigation actions per his contract. And under deletions, we're going to ask you to delete under the TDC bid 013005, the Grayton Beach Dune Walkover. And when we get to the floodplain management, we're going to ask you to table that to the November 26th meeting, but that will be a change from what's the action we were asking for tonight, and that was to consider at tonight's meeting. So those are the changes.
Any questions?
Motion to approve the additions and deletions?
Have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is public comments. This item is not on the agenda.
Got to approve the consent agenda.
That's not. Seeing none, we need a motion to approve this consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a request from Colleen Cricka with Prudential PenFed Realty representing a client that had desire to purchase 3 county-owned lots in the old town of Santa Rosa. Staff has reviewed those lots and find that there's certainly merit in the board retaining ownership of them. So staff would recommend that we do not grant that request. If you choose to, it'll have to go through a surplus property procedure that would actually put them up for bid. But we would, staff recommends that you not surplus those properties at this time.
By taking no action, then
Well, I think if we take action to not surplus them, we can notify her that we're not interested in their offer.
right. I make a motion that we do not accept her offer. Okay.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is a request to adopt procedures to allow properties to be annexed into the Mossy Head Industrial Park. We have a request from Dixie RV that their property be annexed into the industrial park property for the benefit of a number of things that are involved in that property. In your packet is a very brief process that we would utilize for annexing those properties. If you choose to allow this process to move forward and adopt it, we would ask you to consider the request from Dixie RV.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And as I mentioned, we do have a written request from Dixie RV, and I know we got the letter, and it just got a couple of days ago. Did it make it to the board package, or do we have it? We do have a letter, and we'll provide you copies of that, where they made a request for us to annex them into the industrial park. So if you would approve that action, they will be moved through this process.
Do we need to do that now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I make the motion that we approve them to be moved into the Mossy Head Industrial Park.
Second.
Any other questions? We have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, we're asking the board to consider establishing rates for the wastewater facility at the Mossy Head Industrial Park. We currently only have the Dixie RV using that facility, and our agreement with them is that we won't charge them. And further, we anticipate not charging any users until we establish the 250,000 gallon a day plant and bring it online. By adopting these rates, it puts us in a better position when we're seeking funding, because in one of the requests we made, one of the questions was, do we have established rates? And at that point, we did not. I have compared our rates to the water rates for the Mossy Head Waterworks, and they're very comparable. Had discussion this morning with the manager of the Mossy Head Waterworks about providing billing service, and they're still certainly willing to do that for us. So at this time, this will not generate any revenue. We're not going to start billing anyone, but it will give us a set of established rates as we move forward for those services.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And just on a note of information to keep it, make sure we keep this in our minds, is that our agreement with the Dixie RV states that once we're at 75% capacity of the current system, which is the two package plants hooked together, then we will begin construction on the 250,000 gallon day facility. Between the Dixie RV Center, the hotel that they've recently opened, and the commitment to Love's, we're probably between 40 and 50% of that capacity. So we'll keep you posted as we bring new projects online and utilize more capacity, and make sure we stay on top of when we need to move forward with a larger plant. At the last board meeting, we had discussion regarding the ability of individuals to sell dirt, particularly on construction projects in primarily the most rural parts of the county. Our land development code prohibited that, in that the only extraction could be in the extracted use land district. So we only had a limited number of permitted mines for dirt throughout the county. You asked staff to develop a mechanism where we could offer temporary extraction permits. We found that the Department of Environmental Protection had recently issued a general permit that would allow for such, and this document somewhat mirrors that. I want to thank Billy McKee and Scott Carraway for their work in this. But this lays out a plan that in agricultural land use, that on any given 40-acre parcel, that 5 acres can be mined. It requires a permit. It requires them following the DEP guidelines, and we put 2 or 3 additional conditions on it. One is to know their haul route, to make sure they're moving to the nearest state or county paved road, so that we don't do excessive damage to some of our dirt roads. We also addressed in here the ability to extract dirt for pond building and to move it off-site, either to sell it or give it away, based on permits from the Water Management District and or the Department of Environmental Protection. If you approve this, it will be a amendment to the Land Development Code. So your approval today would simply allow us to move it through the process of Planning Commission and then back to you for final approval.
On a 40-acre parcel of 5 acres, is that they're going to have a site specific where that's going?
Yes,
Correct.
sir. They have to
It's
provide a
gonna have to
survey showing where
It's going to be
that
like one project somewhere or another that goes to.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea is not
It's
to
not
just
that, not
allow.
commercial use, selling it to anybody that wants a load of dirt.
Right. Actually, we anticipate more often than not that the contractor purchasing the dirt would go through this process to obtain the permit for the landowner. But it's not designed to say, I've got 40 acres, so I'm going to open up business till I sell 5 acres worth of dirt.
Any questions?
This is just for large-scale ag and general ag.
Large scale and general ag, yes, ma'am.
Well, as of right now, I have no pet in my district. What pet was there is pretty much gone. And I know I've got 2 road projects coming up in the district on 183 and 3280. And right now, they would have to truck a long way to do what they need to do at those 2 particular roads. So with that being said, I motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is regarding fees for planning and development services. While we never anticipate that department being a fully funded enterprise account, as we know that the building departments are, we do feel it's appropriate that we adjust fees occasionally and periodically to reflect the cost of the services we provide. These adjustments in no way will fully cover those costs, but we had staff do an assessment of their time and efforts into the different activities, and we also went and compared those numbers to adjoining counties to develop what we believe are reasonable fees. You have in your packet the current fees as well as the proposed fees. And again, if this is something you'd like to move forward, we would prepare the appropriate resolution for your consideration at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think I'd like to move forward. I'd like to make a comment on variance and variance appeals, where now the cost is $450 and the proposal is to move it to $700. I would suggest that we move it to only to $500, because a lot of these variances and appeals are, you know, you built a swimming pool and you need a 2-foot variance, and you know, you built a shed and you need. So I just feel like most of these are small deals. So maybe we could put that at $500.
Okay.
That would just be my comment.
I have no objection.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you'd motion and to amend based on
Is
Mr. Netter's
that your
comments.
motion?
Yeah, I would
For that?
amend that variance and
Okay.
variance appeals from $700 to $500.
Okay. That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Have a second?
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is staff is requesting that the board remove from consideration the current parking ordinance and to allow staff to work to present a new course of action. We firmly believe that, you know, there are some concerns in parking that need to be addressed, but I believe it would be more beneficial if we took a more focused approach, clearly identifying where the issues are and what the issues are, and then addressing those individually as opposed to looking at a broad brush to that may or may not correct our problems. But we believe that if you'll allow us to the next, next meeting to lay out a plan of action and identify those areas where we believe that we can address the parking issues, and doing it in a more focused manner, that we deal with those clearly identified issues in a more straightforward manner, I believe we'll have more success in getting there. We certainly know there's a number of people that have concerns about how this will move forward. We want to be sure that they're involved in the process. I would envision us in what we bring back to you, a series of public workshops that we would get input from the public to be sure we're moving forward in a way that we can enforce those provisions as we put them in, and that we're in a better position once we finish that process than we are today.
Well,
Any questions?
Yeah, I certainly agree. I think we need to separate them out from residential. And I know that Mr. Shipman's further down on the.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we want to hear his comments now, being it's on this
This
issue, if he's here? There he is. Yeah. Why don't we do them, because that's what your comments are about, Mr. Shipman.
And I think that's what almost everybody in the room is here for. And it's not just the parking. There's been several ordinances that have been floated out here recently that have the potential to have very serious and significant impact on the business community in this county.
I'm sorry, he's got a hush.
I think these people want to hear.
We focusing on parking.
All right. One of them is the parking ordinance, and I think all of you, we've been around to talk to y'all, and you've heard or workshop our comments. And then we have the event ordinance, and then there's this business license ordinance that has a provision in it that says that it will be used, among other things, to ensure compliance with the land code, current land code. And all of those are concerns of the business community. Now, the business community does not want to be, as I categorize it, there are two classes of people that come before the commission to talk about things. There are people who want to gripe, and there are people who want to create solutions. We want to create solutions, but the way things are going about, we don't think that's happening. We believe that it is absolutely incumbent that before the commission ever enacted any ordinance on anything, particularly ones that have criminal penalties with them, like the event ordinance, that it should be reviewed by whoever is going to enforce it. Unless it can be universally enforced, we shouldn't be enacting it. Because when you enact ordinances that you know from the get-go you can't universally enforce it, and there's going to be selective enforcement, then that can potentially become an implement of intimidation. We also believe that you need to be concerned about how you're impacting the business environment, because the business environment, the small business environment, is what drives the economy of this county. The parking regulations, as we've looked at it, will have serious impact on South Walton County. Now, there is a parking problem during tourist season on certain roads in South Walton County, 38 being one of the major ones. But as I've gone around and with our board, and my group, the Small Business Association, only does things by consensus. And we took consensus of our membership. Most of them, I think, are here. A lot of them are in the hallway. The parking problem already exists. So an ordinance that addresses future construction is going to fix your parking problem. You're going to have a multifactorial fix. One of them is expansion of public parking. We've talked about public transportation. We've talked about additional feeder roads down the 30A. You can't do it with just an ordinance. And the system that you have, where you have workshops on a specific ordinance, particularly when there are multiple ordinances connected to each other, doesn't work. In fact, as I go to these, I've gone to a few of these workshops. I prefer not to because, frankly, our members, you haven't heard from us in the past, we're business people and we have things to do. We don't normally attend these meetings, but this has gotten our attention. The workshop format that you're using isn't going to fix the problem, and it's not going to adequately tailor the fix. We're asking that the commission form a blue ribbon committee. The business community wants to be on that. We think the sheriff or his representative absolutely has to be on it if you're enacting criminal statutes regarding some of this stuff. If you have, for example, the business licenses, nobody is opposed to having commercial establishments having the fire chief have a need to know information. The fire chief needs to, his representative needs to be on it so that he can, because the problem needs to be specifically identified what you're trying to accomplish. We think the TDC needs to be on it because the TDC is going to be an integral part of addressing the problems with parking during tourist season and with noise. Events are another concern. Well, you don't enact an ordinance that would make it a crime for me to invite my next door neighbors over to barbecue in my backyard without a permit. But you do want to address how do we fix problems with large events or the events houses. How do we address those? That's what this committee should be for. The committee should also be for longer, large fixes. For example, the public transportation. We're not going to get public transportation in 2 months, but if you put smart people together who all have a stake in this, we might just come up with a way to do it and a way to pay for it. The public parking is the same thing. I know you have a study. Let this committee be involved. Appoint a committee. Put the ordinances on the parking. Put the ordinances on the events. Put the ordinance on the business licenses on hold. Let this committee be formed. Let us get together. The Chamber of Commerce has expressed an interest in this. We'll do it in the sunshine. You know, we will have people that can attend the meetings if they're interested and provide their comments, but the committee is going to be about a solution. So we're asking you to appoint this committee tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's come to order. Let's come to order. Any questions?
Well, I guess my next question would be to Mr. Davis. How would we go about doing this? You know,
Well, the board has the authority to appoint any fact-finding and recommendation committee that it chooses to, give it a specific duty or specific duties. If they're going to come back to you and make any kind of recommendation on an ordinance or multiple ordinances or other solutions, then Mr. Shipman's correct. They would have to operate in the sunshine. We would have to have a staff person that would take minutes and advertise the meetings just like your meetings are advertised. So yes, you always have the authority to do that. Yes.
okay. Can we look into this and bring it back at the next meeting?
In fact, given how we frankly agendaed, I would suggest that. I think we're going to have to agenda it specifically for the purpose of appointing a committee, and we're going to need to outline what the committee's duties and obligations would be.
Okay. That would be my suggestion. We do that we look at appointing a committee, and if you will look into their duties or what kind of and give us some kind of suggestions or guidelines.
Actually, I stand corrected. Mr. Shipman's public comments agenda item does say establish a committee, so you could do that if you choose.
Mr. Chipman, may I ask a question, please? Excuse me. I understand you to say y'all would work within the sunshine, so you would have somebody there to take minutes.
No. We would have to have
We take
somebody
the
there to
minutes.
take minutes.
Yeah.
But you gotta have it where any of those board members or that's on that committee cannot talk between each other.
Yes, sir.
They
You
all
understand that?
understand that.
And that's why what we're suggesting is there would be representatives of different organizations. For example, the Small Business Association would have a member on this committee so that that member would be able to go back to the Small Business Association meeting and talk to them. We would ask that the sheriff have a designated member. The same thing, that member, I couldn't outside, if I'm on the committee and the sheriff has his, I don't know, chief watch commander or whatever on the committee, I couldn't go talk to him outside the committee meeting about it. I could talk to other people. But we think the people that are stakeholders, I think the TDC needs to be on it. Well, whoever that representative is, they can go back to the TDC and talk to other people in the TDC, but as far as the other members, they couldn't talk to the other members of the committee outside the sunshine. But I think that that is the way that we're going to actually see something get done, true progress, because the fix is not the ordinance, it's additional things. It's public parking, it's a tram. It may be additional roads between 98 and 38. We're just asking, give us this chance to do this.
I have a question of him.
Yes, ma'am.
What can you not do in a workshop that you can do in a committee under the Sunshine Law, Public Records Law? Your private email will be subject to downloaded by whoever asks for it. What can't you do in the public in a workshop that you can't? What can't you do in a committee that you can't do in a workshop? I guess is my
In the
question.
workshop, at least the workshop format that the county has done, what we do is we have a workshop on a specific ordinance. So, for example, when you had your workshop on the parking ordinance, we went there and the planning staff took comments on the parking ordinance. It didn't take comments on the connected event ordinance or the business license ordinance. It's on that one particular ordinance, and it's to that ordinance. It's not on any solution outside of the ordinance. You can't think outside the box in your present workshop format. This is a way that we can put people together who are stakeholders for finding a solution, not creating an ordinance and making comments on an ordinance.
Yeah, my experience with committees has been that they drag things out for ad infinitum. They create a lot of extra work. Staff, we'd have to pay staff to attend those workshops, take minutes of those workshops. County administrator would probably have to be at those workshops. And so the planners would obviously have to be at the workshops. So I think the idea that, the committee would be the citizens at large, everybody involved would have a say, instead of having a committee with maybe one or two or three people on there who may have one idea, but they may not represent the large body of the people. So I think a committee narrows it down and limits it to a select few, which we're trying to get away from, to a select few that have their agendas and what they're pushing for, and it goes on, and you very rarely come to a consensus, and then you come to the board and you say, well, the committee recommends this, this, and this, and then somebody stands up and says, well, that doesn't really represent what I think. So we've come up with a process for ordinances that we think works very well, is have everybody weigh in on a subject.
I think 100 people in the room.
Let's come to order.
I think there's at least 100 people in this room that disagree with the commissioner. And further, as you just said, the workshop is limited to an ordinance, not a solution.
Well, first of all, let me correct you.
Wait a minute. I'm not finished yet. And everybody who's laughing, 90% of you guys I've never seen here before on any other issue pertaining to the community. We have these twice a month. If you want to get involved,
We will have no outbreaks.
if you want to get involved, hey, come to the meetings. Good, I'm glad. But this is the first time I've seen many of y'all, and we've talked about these issues for years. And we've got some huge issues, so go ahead, Mark.
I'm sorry. Just so we know, a workshop does not have to be and our current policy or procedure does not prohibit a workshop from being on 25 topics. It's just,
Right.
We can choose to agenda a workshop on 7 topics at one time. I don't want the impression to be left that we are limited to one ordinance or one problem. We can discuss, as long as we just put on the agenda or put on the announcement what the workshop is going to be about or what's going to be discussed. We can have a workshop on anything and any number of agenda items.
I think you're overlooking, if you form a committee that's in the sunshine, effectively that is a workshop. What you're doing, because it's still, as you put it, the group, everyone can come to that committee meeting. They can express their opinions. It would be anticipated. I mean, I can tell you, if you form this committee, our association already has a land planner lined up who will be coming to some of those meetings with suggestions and plans. It's just what we have experienced, it hasn't worked. And to be honest, Commissioner, the reason that you see all these people in this room right now, the reason why you haven't seen us in the past is because, frankly, for the most part, we have better things to do. We're working. But this has gotten our attention, and right now there is a distrust among the business community as to the county government enacting ordinances that aren't what they seem. They're here to harm business. Now, we think, if that's not true, and I sure hope it's not, the simple way to do it is form a committee, put it in the sunshine, and let us work on the solutions. And you know, Commissioner, I spent 3.5 hours with you a week ago with several of our board members. I think you actually agreed with me on a few of the items, like the public parking. So why don't we...
I didn't agree with you, though, on the committee idea. I said that a blue ribbon committee, as in Lloyd Blue Ribbon Committee, is really, I don't think, the type of thing that
Well,
it's not the type of thing
Commissioner Harris,
that...
Commissioner Meadows, I'm sorry, Commissioner Meadows, not Harris.
Yeah.
Lloyd Blue isn't standing up here talking to you. I am. And Lloyd Blue didn't come to your office.
There it is.
Let's come to order.
This is not going to be a battle between Lloyd Blue and Suzanne Harris, not if I'm involved in it. I can tell you that. You may like it to be that way, but it's not going to be for me. This is about what is right for this county.
Well,
Mr. Chairman?
I would suggest too that 90% of these ordinances are already on the books. We're not making up new stuff to attack businesses. The only ordinance that's really not on the book is the business tax. These other ordinances are already on the books. There's already parking requirements. There's already unloading
Yeah,
and
and
loading
they're
parking
changing them,
requirements.
too.
We're proposing some revisions to them, which we would like y'all's input.
Yeah, you're
We would like
proposing
your input.
You're proposing a revision that would make every single business in the complex where my office and your office is located, including your office, that wouldn't comply. You're proposing a provision that would make it, if somebody in this county wanted to build a 6,000 square foot house in the middle of a farm, they'd have to build a paved parking lot. You were
And that's
proposing
why
a
we're
provision that would make it virtually impossible to build larger than maybe a 2,000 square foot house on most of the platted lots in South Walton County. You're proposing an ordinance change that would make it a crime for me to invite 6 people over to my backyard to grill burgers in the backyard without getting a permit.
You're an attorney, and you know better than that.
Mr.
You're
Chairman,
not
I call-
doing-
No, I
you're
don't.
not-
I know how to read the statute.
You're not
that you're
doing
writing that.
you're not doing
Order.
these small businesses any justice by acting like you're representing their interests.
Oh, really, Commissioner?
All right.
Then whose interest am I up here representing?
I'm sorry, Mr.
And
Chairman,
whose
may I
are
have-
you representing, Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, may I have the floor?
Most of these people are in your district, Commissioner.
Let's come to order. Let's come to order.
Mr. Chairman, may I have the floor? While I don't disagree with a number of things that Commissioner Meadows has said, and in a lot of areas she's correct, we are here, to me, to serve the public, and we have a pretty big outcry here of the public, and they're asking us to do something. I think it will be my motion for us to move forward and establish a committee. I would think, you said the Sheriff's Department, the business community, the fire department, the TDC, the chamber, and I would put probably Public Works on there, and perhaps planning, to be a part of it.
Sir, she's speaking.
I've got the floor.
Sure, thanks, sorry.
Yeah, we're still in discussion. There are
and-
still people who want to speak. And
Yeah, and us bring it back to the next
Yes, ma'am.
board meeting for ratification, or for Mark to give us some legal rules and that sort of thing. That is my motion, that we establish the committee.
They have a second.
Just so, because I have a feeling I'm going to be the one drafting some things here. Just make sure I
can't
know.
write that fast.
I know what you're moving is. You're moving for a committee for the purpose of looking at outdoor events, parking, and other problems as identified in tonight's meeting.
And basically anything that affects the small business.
Okay, and you want
Community.
a representative from this association that I assume Mr. Shipman's representing, the Sheriff's Department, the TDC, the Chamber, did I hear that or did I not hear that? The Chamber, County Planning, County Administration, the Fire Department.
And if it's going to affect countywide, I don't know whether it affect municipality, perhaps a representative from the business community in the Funia. But I guess they would be affected. They wouldn't be affected, that's right.
I
They wouldn't
think
be
what you're talking about is businesses. There are people who live here who are not in business as well. So I think that they need to be represented. South Walton Community Council. If we're going to have this South Walton Community Council, Coastal Dune Lake Advisory Committee, we need somebody from the bed tax community. We need somebody from all walks of life, because this is not just a small business issue. This is an issue that affects tourists, residents, guests, people who live here part-time, people who live here full-time, and the businesses.
I would include
Yeah.
the South Walton Community
Well,
Council.
while we-
I'll amend
hold
my
on.
motion.
That's 10.
I think what we're getting this,
Let me stop you. Just
thing about this, we need to determine, we throwing around all kind of names and everybody in South Walton Community Council, the sheriff and all this.
Let
We
me
need
just-
we need to have admin to look at and to figure out and let the board discuss between the next meeting or 2 weeks from now when we meet, figure out what we want to do. I mean, we're getting it all over the board here, getting so many
That was-
people on the committee now to, and I'm not opposed to that, but all I'm saying, we need to know what we're doing.
I agree.
And I would agree, but I think one of the key words we need to follow up on is Mr. Shipman identified, is all stakeholders, because they should be heard, and I think that.
And we absolutely
But I
agree with
think
that.
I don't think we're ready tonight to take the specific formal action, but bring it back to the next board meeting so we can get a clearer understanding
Yeah.
of what we want to do. But I agree, all stakeholders, and
Yes, sir.
not just the small businesses, should be the ones that are heard.
Yes, sir. We absolutely agree with that.
Mr. Shipman, and for the board, my concern would be also that the south end of the county has specific and different needs than the north end of this county. And I'm thinking if we, like Mr. Jones said earlier on, if we look at it incrementally, depending on the location that it's at, address those issues and concerns there and maybe come up with a solution. But I'm not in favor of a blanket thing for the entire county to go back. Like I said when I met with you, if I have a party at my house, a cookout, I'm not going to be subjected. I don't want to be subjected. I got to have X number of parking spots. I can park 60 out there right now in a cleared field.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to make sure is we kind of narrow it.
Well, I think we need to, what we need to do is, you get motion
Yeah, we
second,
need to
you
discuss
withdraw,
it and
let's
bring
look
it.
at it.
Well, I'll withdraw my second then.
Yeah. You withdraw your motion? All right.
We would request one other thing of the county commission then, that you put on hold till you come back to the next meeting.
Well,
Any further action on the parking ordinance, the event ordinance, and the business license ordinance.
I will withdraw my motion if it is brought back and we do form the committee at the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be glad to meet with Mr. Shipman, anyone in their, representing their group, to have some discussions that, I think when you boil it all down, we want the same thing. We want to do what's in the best interest of the county that serves the needs of the business owners, those others that are impacted by the businesses and the other issues we're dealing with. I'd be more than happy to sit down with them and try to work a plan that somewhat, as I mentioned earlier, a plan of action that moves these things forward in a way that is meaningful, that we can attack the issues and certainly not attack one another, but to come to some reasonable conclusions of how we can resolve some of the issues that we're facing. And I do agree with Mr. Shipman. If we're going to do that, then we need to, as I mentioned with the parking ordinance, we need to no longer consider what's before you and the events ordinance and, whatever you choose to do with the business tax receipt.
And those are still in the public review process anyway. We're
Sure they
not
are.
doing anything on
Right.
anything
Right.
today, tomorrow, or probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
And as you mentioned earlier, they're now. There are ordinances on books now.
Yeah.
But be glad to follow
many of
whatever
which are
direction you
being
give us
broken
to
by this group.
meet with Mr. Shipman or whomever.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, did you just accuse our group of
No.
violating many ordinances?
No, I think you
Do you think
misled me.
that's something that as a commissioner, is you're serving your agenda by?
I'm sorry, I have a motion. I said I will withdraw my motion if, that we will bring this back to the next meeting and form the group at that time.
You don't have a
We're in
second.
agreement.
Now you don't have
No,
a
it,
second.
no, it,
Okay.
You can't do nothing because you don't have a second to whatever you
Okay.
can do. So,
So is the motion
Yes,
withdrawn or not?
yeah, the motion's gone.
motion's gone.
But, Mr., am I correct in understanding, we've given direction to the county
Yeah.
administrator
Yep.
to try to work this out, to come back at the next meeting with some idea that will be a comprehensive approach that will bring in as many stakeholders, and I like that word that you used, to bring in as many stakeholders as possible into the process so that we can best serve all the county, and in those cases where we need to have a laser-like focus, to do those as well.
Yeah.
So I think that give Mr. Jones the opportunity to work with Mr. Shipman and others to try and bring this together in a comprehensive fashion that we can take a look at next board meeting.
Next board
That's-
meeting.
So it will be agended next board meeting?
Right.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Jackie Markell. I just want to say, with all due respect to this small business organization and many of my friends out there are many in this county that have been asking for community involvement with this board for many, many years. I am glad that the commission is now looking at a vehicle where there can be community involvement. But when I hear, specific 5 Sheriff's Office, TDC, Small Business Association. I don't hear South Walton Community Council. I don't hear Walton County taxpayers. I don't hear any HOAs. I don't hear any regular homeowners. You know, it's supposed to be what's good for the entire community as a whole. Our community is only as strong as all of the elements within that community being satisfied to some degree. And it's not just about small businesses. Yes, small businesses are important. I'm a small business owner. I'm a small business. I don't agree with a lot of the things that this group is saying. I do think we need solutions, but to suggest that this is being rushed through and this is being somehow plowed through, my goodness, you guys know how many meetings I come to. You guys see me here. We have been talking about these issues for years, some of them. And, you know, I don't like to come to all these meetings. I don't like to take my time to come to all these meetings. I have a life, I have a business, I have other things I want to do. But I know that when you come to these meetings, you learn things. You understand how the process works. You understand who the stakeholders are and what their interests are. And for one group to come before you and, in a snap of a finger, get your attention and get you almost voting on setting up a blue ribbon committee tonight is kind of a slap in the face to all the people that have been working with you for all these years asking for this very thing. You know, I've been to workshops. When you have a blue ribbon committee, that sounds so special. We're going to get the blue ribbon people giving advice to you guys. You know, there are people out in this community that have great ideas, that have begged you guys to listen to us. I think this is a good idea to discuss these things, but for preference to be given to one interest group within this county, I think disrespects the entire community as a whole.
Okay, move on, Mr. Jones. You ready?
But just to be clear, I'll spend some time with Mr. Shipman and determine what we would feel would be the most prudent course of action to move these issues forward, and that at this time we're not on the events ordinance and the parking ordinance. We're going to just leave them where they are for now.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is where they are anyway.
Where they are anyway.
I would,
And to look at is, you know, how many stakeholders that we feel like that want to be on this committee. You know, I don't think it should be limited.
yeah, and I would like just to make this clear, as Commissioner Enfield correctly put it. We're not asking that this committee consist of us. We're saying that it be a committee of representatives of all the people who are going to get affected, who are the people that are involved. I'm not suggesting you don't put the community council on it or some other organization that represents different views. I want you to hear everybody's view. I want to sit in a room with everybody and hear their views. But at the end of the day, it's going to have to be about solutions, not complaints. Most workshops I've attended, they've been about complaints. Put all the stakeholders on there. Any legitimate organization that's affected, and I agree with Commissioner Chapman. It sounds like probably there ought to be one that's specifically perhaps to South Walton County, because as I discussed with Commissioner Chapman, I own a farm, and I certainly don't want to build a paved parking lot on my farm because somebody is concerned about parking on 30A. So let's fix our problems. But I think the committee needs to be formed. And to suggest that because I don't show up at a county commission meeting every week and complain that somehow makes us less viable. We're here because we want to fix the problem. I took my time to visit with all the commissioners to try to do positive move forward, not to simply complain and argue. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to speak, sir?
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Michael McGinnis. I'm with the Outpost for Bikers here in Freeport, South Walton County, and I am, thank you for the honor, a disabled veteran. My concern is with the outdoor events. As many of you know, every week we have outdoor events. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we have outdoor events.
Yeah. Sir, that's not on the agenda tonight to be talking.
I thought it was over here on the last few minutes. I hear them talking about the parking. They keep mentioning the outdoor events. Excuse me for being out of order. But when can I talk about outdoor events? Because
We're going to be addressing it as we move the process we've just had a lengthy discussion about. And my idea is that there will be ample opportunity during that process to hear your concerns.
I would like to be a part of that, please. If someone would inform me, I'll be happy to give people information from my contacts, because this is our life's blood with outdoor events.
Sure, and
Okay.
those meetings will be publicly noticed, and you know, and just for the board and the public, the discussions I've had with the commissioners regarding how we.
I was telling Jeff over.
I'm sorry?
I was telling Jeff to get this
Okay,
information.
was that we absolutely needed to focus on solutions, determine what the issues are, clearly focus on solving those particular issues. So that's what I would anticipate us moving forward in some process to get there.
Yes,
So, and that would include.
Well, thank you very much. I just
Yes, sir.
think, for a business my such, for me to request 3 permits every single week, every month of the year, it would be rather ridiculous.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is regarding code enforcement and some conversation. It's item 9 under admin. And some conversations we've had over the past few months with commissioners and staff, there was some idea that perhaps we could do more code enforcement if we had some ability to be proactive. I asked that our code officers in their daily travels over the last month or so to identify the most egregious and common violations that they observed. And they reported back that those were junk and debris, signs, change of use, and roadside vending. So if the board wishes to see code become more proactive, I would suggest that we take action to allow them in their daily travels. We're not talking about out patrolling the streets, but if they're moving from one spot to the other and they see one of these 4 violations, to be able to stop and address it in the appropriate manner.
Could I ask one question,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Jones? This does not negate the person I call in
Absolutely
to code
not.
enforcement. I still have to give my name, that we're not going to do anonymous calls,
I would assume not.
Okay, this is just if they're driving around the street and they see too many political signs, they
Yeah,
can
whatever
do
the case
something
may
about
be,
it.
if they see a code violation regarding junk and debris, signs, change of use, or roadside vending, they can stop and take appropriate action. And I'm certain the first action will be, hey, this is in violation of the code, and take it from there.
Any other questions?
Need a motion on that?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to take comments?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second before we take comments?
Yeah, I'll second so we can comment.
Okay.
Thank you. For the record, my name's Lloyd Blue. And Ms. Meadows, if you have any comments that you'd like to direct to me instead of about me, that would be okay, and I'm here right now. Thank you. As it relates... Yeah, well, I think it's inappropriate for a county commissioner to make snide comments about people. And I think you owe me an apology.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Well, good. As it relates to the item that you are discussing, the agenda item and the write-up that is in the materials, it indicates that one of the things as to being proactive would include the ability to do anonymous follow-ups by the code enforcement. Now, the question was posed, Mr. Jones, and you said that that's not the case. The agenda item specifically in the memo to you specifies that this would allow a change in policy that would allow anonymous complaints to be followed up by the,
That was in Mr. Dice's memo, but it was
That's
not part of my recommendation.
okay, I just wanted to get
Absolutely.
clarification
Sure.
on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask on that, can I follow up on that question? I mean, this says multiple anonymous complaints, not just one. So the anonymous is out?
I mean, certainly the board can direct code enforcement to work everybody's how they please. My recommendation is to allow code to go identify themselves as a code officer. We saw this issue, and we're here to investigate it. If you wish them to accept anonymous complaints or multiple
Well, no, I
anonymous.
guess my question was, it wasn't just if it's just a single anonymous complaint, I understand where you're coming from, but if you have multiple, I don't know what multiple is going to be
Right.
for a magic number, but if you keep getting calls from other people that this is happening, but they don't want to leave their name, shouldn't it be? Because then it says it's in consultation with the director and the county attorney, so it's not just, okay, you got some guy that's speed dialing you every 5 minutes to give you the complaint.
Right.
Well, in the past, I think we all have had, people that call us and say, there's this code going right next to me, but I don't want, my neighbor will do something to me. And in that case, usually my office would call code enforcement and say, we go look at it. But a lot of people are afraid. I understand anonymous, you're being afraid to give your name. But on the other hand, if it's too anonymous, then if I really don't like Bill Linfeld, I'm gonna call every day, and so there's a fine line.
And I appreciate that, but it's we've had our fight over the neighborhood fence or something like that.
Yeah.
You make a call, but if it's all four other commissioners calling about my fence, then it's multiple anonymous. Then I think it should be allowed to at least consult with the county attorney and the division director to talk about should we be going out and looking at this. And that's what I took away from this memo.
And Commissioner, frankly, that's what's happening now, just so you know. They call me, say we've had 5 anonymous calls or 4 about the same thing, and we'll make a call on whether they should just go look and see what's going on. Yes.
Can we kind of keep it that way for now? Is that working?
It seems to be, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I agree, because some people, are afraid to call. Their neighbors will take, retroactive,
Now, just so we're clear, we're talking about reports, we're not talking about complaints. Reports is something that could be mature into a complaint. That's a little different.
Right.
So, yes, I
let's be
think
clear.
multiple complaints could remain anonymous.
We got a motion.
Motion and second on the
Yes.
floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion second on the floor.
We have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is from Public Works. To request that you approve the negotiated fee from Adkins Engineering for surveying, permitting, and construction engineering inspection services in the amount of $199,403 for the County Road 1084 improvement project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is request you approve the option to renew the current agreement with Roadscape North Florida for construction contract thermoplastic striping. We had a 2-year contract with this firm, and it expires next month. There are 2 one-year options to renew, so this will be the first option to renew.
Any questions?
And they have performed very satisfactorily. Public Works is pleased with their performance.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Next item, we request approval of the Florida Department of Corrections Work Squad Agreement for Work Squad 813, Amendment and Addendum A. This is a replacement contract of a contract that will be expiring in April, just to be renewed by November the 22nd. This is a crew that works with Brad Alford's group in Parks and Recreation and Facilities and Maintenance. So we're not gaining a work squad, it's simply the renewal of a contract for an existing.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, you have before you the landscape median request and low bid. There were 3 bidders. The low bid was Harper Landscaping LLC, and we recommend awarding that bid to Harper Landscaping.
Motion to approve the bid to Harper Landscaping LLC.
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Motion carries.
Next item is to request you approve the negotiated fees with Genesis Group for the contract administration and inspection for the County Road 2 paved shoulder project. If you'll recall, you selected Genesis Group as the firm that we would negotiate with. It was anticipated those fees would be over $200,000, and they are, so it was appropriate to go through the RFQ process in selecting Genesis. So we ask your approval of that contract amount of $248,689.36.
A motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We're asking that you approve for the county to sign off and submit applications to the DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers for Snorkel Reef. This is an association with the South Walton Artificial Reef Association, as they will be providing the fundings for these permits and the construction of the reefs, and the county will be simply applying for these permits, working with SWARA to put these reefs in place in the appropriate permitted locations.
We don't have any financial hook in this thing. What about our liability issues, Mr. Davis?
We've reviewed with some length the proposal's been going back and forth. We can contract them away. It will not be an issue.
All right, motion to approve then.
Second.
Have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the add-on item regarding the Alligator, Eastern and Western Lakes, we were notified that we were eligible for some fee waivers of some of the permitting on the joint coastal permits there, so we're requesting the chair be granted permission to sign a letter asking that those fees be waived.
So moved.
Second.
Good. Quick question. Is this because they're environmentally essential?
Exactly, that's right.
Thank you.
And that's what the letter will say, they're environmentally essential.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have a motion, we have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bagby, you got an update, or you just?
I do, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This is our official monthly update and our fiscal year update on the bed tax numbers. We brought in a little over $1.6 million in the month of September, which meant we were up 12.61% over September 2012. And for the year, fiscal year 2013, we were over $18.5 million, which meant we were up over fiscal year 2012 by 12.71%. Subject to your questions, that's our only.
Any questions? Mr. Davis?
Thank you, Commissioners. The first item I have is a request to approve a service agreement with Preferred Governmental Claim Solutions, Inc., who is basically your insurance provider now for workers' comp, to perform third-party claims administration for a past self-insured workers' compensation claim. Commissioners, believe it or not, we were self-insured in the late 70, early 80 period. We have an outstanding workers' compensation claim that we are still paying from 1980. Instead of our staff reviewing medical information and trying to make a determination of whether or not a person should continue to be paid out of that self-insurance claim, I'm not joking, it was 1980. I have asked you to contract with these folks to do the claim service for us.
Mr. Davis, there are two individuals that are under this category.
That's correct.
Since 1980?
The oldest one is 1980. I honestly don't remember when the other one was. Jesus. But Commissioner, it would be in around that time period, yes, ma'am.
God. Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Make a comment there.
Yes.
If I may, Commissioners, just if you hear any discussion or see any calendared events dealing with self-insurance, a whole different ballgame from what went on back then. We're having some discussion with our healthcare providers to deal with a self-funded program that is 100% different than what went on then. So if you hear any discussion or see anything about that, don't freak out just yet, because it's a whole different ballgame than what we're talking about now.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is a request approval of an EMS mutual aid agreement with Bay County. This is an agreement we do essentially every year when it runs out, to allow mutual aid back and forth across the border.
So moved.
Second.
Got a
Let
motion
them watch
second.
them get the bunker.
Got a motion second. All those in favor?
I didn't want to say that. Thank you,
Motion
Commissioners.
carries.
Next item is ratification of pending litigation actions. As you know, I provide you, try to do it quarterly, and sometimes I do it less often than that, what's happened with the litigation that the Office of the County Attorney is handling. Per the contract that I have, or my office has with you, you should ratify our actions after we take them. So I have provided the litigation matrix to you and just ask you to ratify the actions we've taken. Just so you know, we have, on your behalf, filed a counterclaim in the case. We have filed a new lawsuit regarding the ejectment of a squatter, and I anticipate filing at least one and maybe two more injunction actions regarding some land use issues that we have. But if you would just move to ratify the actions that we've already taken.
So moved.
Got a second. We've got a second.
Okay, we need a second.
Got a motion.
I'll second it. Mr. Davis, looking at this litigation status, the first 9 have to deal with eminent domain.
Yes, sir.
From 331.
Yes.
Why are we hooked into this?
We often are hooked in because we have right-of-ways that are being taken by the state, or we might have an easement, or we might have, there's a variety of different ways we get named.
I understand that, but these are individual
Oh, but
people.
the first name on the case style will be the person who usually has, the DOT will divide the road up into sections, and when they file their taking claim, the first name that they come across on that section will be the first person they name in the lawsuit. We're usually the last person, by the way, that's named in the lawsuit.
County has no direct interest.
Well, I know we have no direct interest in it, but
Yeah,
are
normally
we not
do.
aren't we expending funds to get us out of this thing?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
The only thing we normally do, Commissioners, we monitor just to make sure we have no claims.
Thank you.
And by the way, that's also true for those foreclosure claims as well.
For the, for what, sir?
Foreclosed.
Foreclosed, okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Had a motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Commissioner Meadows?
I have nothing. I do want to say that this parking thing, it's not about Cindy Meadows. This is not about Cindy Meadows. This is about Walton County and representing 55,000 people. So, on the record, this is not about me. So, don't let them make it about me.
Commissioner Commander?
I don't have a thing.
Commissioner Enfield?
Mr. Chairman, and I think you'll have it passed out in front of you. During the year, we see ups and downs a number of planning issues that get brought before the board. Sometimes they get to be very lengthy, sometimes they're very short, but there's no smoothing out. Sometimes we have very lengthy regular Board of County Commission meetings that are then followed by land use meetings. And what I'd like to follow up on is a discussion that was presented several months ago but never acted upon, and that's that to have, after the Planning Commission meetings, have the chairman, the county administrator, and the planning director review the actions of the Planning Commission, and if it looks like it's going to be a very, very lengthy schedule for a Tuesday night meeting, that we hold it on a separate Tuesday, and that we try to, to the extent possible, if it's going to be something that impacts north of the bay, it be held in Defuniak Springs. If it impacts south of the bay, let's try to have it here, as if it's practical to do so, and that many of these things are not required to be heard after 5 o'clock, and if not, then let's get them handled as quickly as we can. It's just the flexibility. It'll be plenty of time to notify the public of if there's going to be a different date on the thing, but it just keeps it so that at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, when we've been sitting here in the past, that we are able to devote our full attention by being, fully aware of what's going on and not dragging. So I'm just asking that we allow the opportunity, that the flexibility, that should we look like we're having a very lengthy land use meeting, you go to a different day.
2 weeks?
That's my motion.
Okay. So I was just asking, so we'd have
Second.
we'd have time to do the 2 weeks notification and, yeah,
We'll
that's
have time.
perfect.
Just-
I'll third it, yes, sir.
We have,
I'll
She'll
fourth
fourth
it.
it, yeah.
I'll fourth it.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's it.
Any public comments?
As long as I don't
Take
miss
about,
NCIS.
y'all want a short,
Yes, Ken.
Yes, we want
As
to.
long as I don't miss NCIS 2 weeks in a row.
you want to take a short break?
You want to ask him if he has anything?
You have anything, Phil? No. Well, I know you
Phil, he's
did. I
ready
mean,
to go. He's
Chad.
chatting.
That's true.
Hi, I do
Maybe
have
we
a
do have-
public
Yeah.
comment, Betty Lecture, and I want to say I really appreciate y'all trying to get some problems fixed with parking in neighborhoods, parking business, and I know it's a hard thing, and it does prove that people don't stay here because they're all gone. And I have another life too, but I try to support y'all and be here to see what's going on. So I do appreciate all your help.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Y'all want to take a short break? What y'all want to do? 5-minute break?
Keep telling
We're
you.
going to take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
Mr. Dice?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 legislative items and 2 quasi-judicial items on the agenda tonight. The first item under legislative is the floodplain management ordinance, and we are requesting to continue this item for further discussion until the November 26th meeting in Defuniak Springs at 9 a.m. And so that's our request, is to continue to that time.
You said November?
Pardon me?
You said November, right?
Yes, on November 26th at 9 a.m. in Defuniak Springs. As this goes forward, it will take 2 approvals, one, one to adopt and one to bring it forward. And one of those meetings will have to be after 5 p.m. And so we're assuming if we go forward on the 26th in Defuniak Springs, the next meeting down here will be the actual adoption meeting after 5 p.m. According to state statute.
Motion to move to November 26th at 9 a.m.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the next item is number 2 on your agenda. This is the Prominence DRI PUD large-scale amendment. I believe Mr. Tim Brown is here. And this is basically a large-scale amendment to basically correct a mapping error. Currently, the property has the land use designation of court-ordered overlay, and we believe this is an error due to some legal descriptions being inaccurate, or actually a mapping error. The property consists of 44.5 acres, and again, the request is to move it to traditional neighborhood and development district. And Tim is here if you have any questions of him regarding.
Are there any
this.
questions?
No.
Any public comment? See none? You have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, that brings us to number 3 on the agenda. The next 3 and 4 are quasi-judicial hearings, so we'll be sworn in.
Thank you. Anyone who anticipates speaking to the board or testifying tonight, please stand and raise your right hand. Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will give the board tonight will be the truth? Thank you. When you come to the podium, just say your name and indicate that you were sworn. Commissioners, have any of you had any ex parte contacts regarding any item on the agenda that would prevent you from rendering a fair and impartial decision tonight?
No.
Hearing none, are there any objections to the notice as published or received? Thank you. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Mr. Chairman, this is a PUD amendment. This is an existing PUD that was approved in 2007. It's approximately 79.22 acres. I'm going to ask Renee Bradley, the project manager for this PUD, to come forward, and she will go over the particulars of this item.
Good evening. Renee Bradley, Walton County Planning and Development. D.R. Horton Incorporate and Interlight Engineering are requesting a major development to amend the Prominence PUD Development Order 0600100035 and to amend the Development of Regional Impact Resolution 2007-09. The request to amend the DRI Resolution 2007-09 is an E2 change per Section 380.619E2K of the Florida statutes that states changes that do not increase the number of external peak hour trips and do not reduce open space and conserved areas are not substantial deviations to the DRI development order. The project is located on County Road 30A, just west of Camp Creek Lake. The project has a land use of traditional neighborhood development to the north. The south parcel is currently shown as court order overlay because of a mapping error that took place in the 2010 ear-based amendments. The correction of this error was proposed to you earlier. The PUD amendment is requesting the following decrease in development: a reduction in previously approved density from 650 residential units to 625 residential units. A reduction in previously approved intensity from 200,000 gross square feet of retail to 40,000 gross square feet of commercial. A reduction in previously approved hotel rooms from 120 rooms to 0 hotel rooms. A reduction in previously approved intensity from 5,000 gross square feet of spa to 0. No change in a previously approved 13,000 square feet of civic uses is requested. In addition to the above reduction in density and intensity, the applicant is also requesting the following changes to the deviation that was approved with the previous development order. LDC section, number 1, LDC section 2.0602b5, detailed PUD plan approval major development criteria. The request: all technical phases of Prominence, regardless of size, will be reviewed as minor developments approved by staff and will not be subject to future public hearings consistent with prior Walton County policy. Number 2, LDC section 4.06029, preservation buyout. Preservation buyout size limitation is 10 acres. And what that means is basically if the parcel is over 10 acres, you can do a buyout, and they're requesting a deviation from that. The request is to apply buyout to unlimited acreage. This deviation is being requested for consistency with the Walton County Comprehensive Plan.
Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, do we want to wait between each one of these for any kind of questions or discussions on each item, or you want to go to the end and take them at the end? And maybe it's worthwhile to address each one as we go forward, just so we're clear.
Let's get them resolved as we go through.
Okay. Are there any, what number you're on?
Second one.
I'm on number 2, sir.
Okay, any questions? Any questions?
I make sure I understood correctly. You're going from a buyout of 10 acres
What that
to
means,
unlimited or to 5?
what is allowed in our comprehensive plan, sir, if a parcel is over 10 acres, you're not allowed to do a buyout. It has to be 10 acres or less to apply a buyout. What they're asking for is to be able to buy out on their parcel, which is 79 point something acres.
Okay. Thank you.
Explain the buyout to me. Reservation buyout.
Let's say that we have oak scrub, for instance, and it has a 50% requirement for preservation. They could actually buy out 50% of that 50%.
Okay.
Which they could destroy it, but they could pay a fee.
And the county has a preservation fund that accumulates the money for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Number 3, LDC section 5.0005, impervious surface ratio, existing approval. Lot coverage of row houses is 70% max. The request: to delete the above deviation, I'm sorry, I missed the single family 60% maximum. That's what's in their current plan. Request: to delete the above deviation and meet the current Walton County Land Development Code that does not specify impervious surface ratios relative to individual lots within a development. Prominence will meet the impervious surface requirements of the Walton County Land Development Code, which is 85% measured by the overall PUD property.
Any questions? Continue.
Number 4, LDC section 5.0102, landscape buffers, which is 10 foot between residential uses, 20 feet between residential and commercial uses. Current plan: A 10-foot landscape buffer will be provided along north, south, east, and west boundaries. A 25-foot landscape buffer will be provided along the state park. Landscape buffers will not be required between various constituent uses within prominence.
Any questions? Continue.
Number 5, LDC Section 5.0103C, parking lot interior planning areas. Minimum 10% shall be landscaped. The request, to provide a minimum of 5% to be landscaped. This deviation is being requested to allow additional clustering and consistency with the traditional neighborhood design concept.
Any questions? Continue.
Number 7. Well, let me make sure. Number 6. LDC Section 5.0103, parking lot interior planning areas. Maximum 10 parking spaces. The request, to allow unlimited parking spaces in a row. The Planning Commission requested that be only limited to commercial, and they have agreed to that. So the request has been amended.
Would, and I don't have a problem with that as long as it's just not lined up all along 30A. I mean, as long as, you know, there's a commercial thing and then there's just a line of parking without any intermittent landscaping. If it's in the back, it's, you know, but you see what I mean? If you drive down 30A and they just have them all in a row, my question is, you know, that, you know, it just looks like a car lot.
Would you like to get the applicant to address that, ma'am?
Yeah.
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 Thank you, Renee, and thank you, Commission. I'm David Smith with Interline Engineering Corporation, and I would like to address Ms. Meadows' your comment. And the commercial area that we're referring to is in this area on the south side of 38. This map, north is right. This is County Road 38. So our commercial area is here, and our buildings are actually closer to County Road 38 with all of our parking behind the buildings.
Okay.
So it will not be up along County Road 38. It's actually back.
Okay, that's the answer to my
Okay.
question. Thank you.
Thank you. Continue, Renee.
As I said, the applicant has revised per the request of the Planning Commission. Number 7, 5.0205C, parking space standards, 90-degree parking space depth, 20 feet. Request to allow 18 foot.
Any questions?
Yes. 20 foot. My truck is 18 foot to the end of it. And if my hitch is on there, it's out there about 19 and a half. I mean, is there a particular reason why you went from
What did you say?
20
you
to
hit?
18?
Did you say you hit or you hit?
I hit. H-I-T-C-H. I'm just wondering from the applicant.
David Smith again, and we just are requesting it for flexibility. We do have areas where the vehicles can overhang from the parking blocks. We do typically have a 2-foot overhang, so a longer vehicle, when it parks at the parking block, can actually overhang further. So there are some areas where larger vehicles we can't accommodate those, but we are requesting 18 feet just for flexibility in our parking design.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
but what if all those are filled? Then what do you do with your hitch?
You can't drive your truck down here.
Continue, Renee.
Number 8, LDC Section 5.0402C2, minimum road surface in right-of-way widths, private streets, 40-foot minimum right-of-way and 20-foot pavement. The request, to change what was defined by cross-section exhibits in the approved plan to now be defined by the general circulation plan and updated cross-section exhibits. The varying right-of-way and roadway widths provide design flexibility unique to traditional neighborhood developments and allow for additional vegetation preservation.
I have a question. Question would be, you know, when you do that, you know, your parking, if anybody has to park on the right of way, you know, there's blockage and then we get all kinds of phone calls and stuff. What is the plan for parking in those small streets?
We, David Smith again, and we have, again, parking proposed behind our commercial areas here. On the front entry roads, I'm pointing here going south. There's parking along this entry road. There's parking here on both sides of this entry road. This road that runs east and west, there's significant parking here, parallel parking. And then this road, actually back in here, there's parallel parking, and then we also do have additional parking up here around the recreation facility.
So you're gonna have parallel parking spaces, like in between the housing units on the street?
They're out in front of the units.
The
that are
units,
on the
okay, so they're gonna be, are they gonna have a driveway or a garage or anything, or are they
This-
gonna park parallel?
This space in Prominence, the houses actually have rear entry.
Okay,
So they drive in the back of the house, so the parking is actually out in the front street, but they don't
Okay.
access the house from.
okay, so it's alleyways, and then you've got some parking for extra, for visitors and stuff?
Yes, ma'am. And then
Okay.
this area here, we have parking on one side of the road, exactly as you mentioned, so that you can
Okay.
get the houses. on
Okay.
each side.
Thanks.
Because I had parallel parking.
Sarah says she can't parallel park, so probably gonna have to change something.
Go ahead, Renee.
Number 9, LDC Section 5.043H Street Design Standards. Sidewalks shall be provided on both sides of all residential streets in all new subdivisions. Current plan has no sidewalks in street section ST 36 per cross-section exhibits. The applicant has revised the sidewalks and provided a pedestrian circulation plan at the recommendation of the Planning Commission. And that is in section 1.4, page 4.
That's good. So, yeah, we find that sidewalks are so critical, in all these neighborhoods. So you're gonna have a place where people can walk their dogs and get out of the traffic and that kind of thing.
The rest of their request on number 9, it says sidewalks will be required a minimum along one side of the internal streets only, or alternatively in common areas between lots where appropriate. Prominence is being designed as part of a walkable community. Number 10, 11.0102, designation of plans as major or minor developments. Designation of plans as major or minor developments in the major development criteria. Request. All technical phases of Prominence will be reviewed as minor developments approved by staff. All technical phases of Prominence, regardless of size, will be reviewed as minor developments approved by staff and will not be subject to future public hearings.
Any questions? Continue.
Number 11, 13.0200C, scenic corridor setbacks, landscape impervious surface allowed. Request, 0 feet. This deviation is being amended for consistency with Walton County Comprehensive Plan L 1.11.1A. And that's for Prominence as a traditional neighborhood development, which is in T and D, which that is the language that they're quoting, is T and D language. The applicant is providing a 10-foot perimeter landscape buffer along County Road 38. That is all the deviations. Now, we do have conditions requested by the Environmental Department. Number 1, the applicant is proposing to utilize the Greenway Corridor Incentive LDC 4.0602, number 10, which may allow the developer and county to reduce the remaining preservation area outside of the Greenway dedication by an area which is equal to 1/2 of the area outside the Greenway dedication. This policy is for parcels that are located within a designated Greenway corridor as designated on the county's adopted flume series. Currently, there are no parcels designated as a Greenway corridor on the county's adopted flume series. So we just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of that.
Any questions?
Where's their stormwater going?
We have a series of exfiltration systems that are proposed within the roadways, which will actually be subterranean exfiltration.
Okay, so it's actually gonna go be underground.
Yes, ma'am. Prominence is high and dry with sandy soils, and it actually works very well underneath the roadways.
Okay, thanks. I didn't see anything in here.
Number 2, for the environmental conditions. The applicant is proposing to dedicate the Greenway corridors to public use in an easement at the time of platting.
Any questions?
Number 3, sheet 1.6, page 2, note number 4 indicates that the applicant reserves the right to utilize the preservation buyout, conservation element C 1.113.7. This will require BCC approval and will need a variance approval since 4.062 limits this buyout option to parcels less than 10 acres in size. I would like to add that on the preservation, there will be a condition from the Planning Department that will limit this to 5 acres of buyout per the Planning Commission's recommendations. Transportation proportional fair share. Phase 1 has been paid and is platted. Phase 2 is estimated to be $2,363,116. Phase 3 is estimated to be $712,516. Phase 4 is estimated to be $409,121. And Phase 5 is estimated to be $395,153. And Phase 6 is estimated to be $474,912. The cumulative trip total for the full build-out of the proposed project, phases 2 through 6, is 394 trips, which is a reduction of 422 trips from the previously approved 816 trips in the 2007 plan. On fire, a more detailed technical review regarding fire life and safety shall be conducted for final approval. There are no code violations on this parcel at this time, and staff has received no public comments. Staff has received an approval letter from DEO dated July the 9th, 2013, stating pursuant to Section 380.06.19 e2k, if Walton County approves the change, it will not require the filing of a notice of proposed change. Planning Commission recommendations. Mr. Kramer made a motion to approve this amendment with the conditions that the applicant provide a sidewalk master plan, an operational analysis, add the word commercial to the parking space deviations, change deviation request from unlimited buyout to a limit of 5 acres, and that they provide a parking plan to staff prior to approval. Suzanne Harris seconded, all A's. The applicant has provided a pedestrian circulation plan and a parking plan, and it has added the word commercial to the parking space deviation and changed the buyout request to be limited to 5 acres. Staff is pending a transportation operational plan. Due to the time it takes to have an operational plan prepared, the applicant has requested a condition be placed in the development order that the operational plan will be complete and approved by Preble Rish and Greg Graham, or the county engineers, prior to the construction of any phase beyond phase 1, which has already been approved. Staff's finding of facts. Unless other evidence is presented to the contrary, all requested deviations as presented in this report must be approved by the Board of County Commissioners for the requested prominence plan unit development amendment and DRI amendment to be consistent with the Walton County Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, which includes the previously stated environmental conditions and Planning Commission's requested condition for the operational plan. And our recommendation is a motion to approve with conditions, or deny the prominence PUD amendment, and we would need a second motion to approve the ordinance for the DRI amendment.
I just have one question. The accesses, am I correct in saying that there's 4 accesses here, but somewhere in the report, they said they may have 6, but that they would be is that somewhere in there? I don't recall 6 accesses to 38 instead of 4.
We're proposing 4 connections to County Road 38, and I can point to those as well. There's one here.
Yeah.
And again, this is the south side. There's one here. There's actually one-way drives. So this is one access. This is an in. This is drive out.
Okay.
And that's a 2-way drive. So that's a total of 3, and another, again, a one-way in and a one-way out for the 4th access connection.
Okay. And that, you think that'll be it for the accesses?
That is it. Yes,
Okay. Somewhere I read there was 6.
Is that it, Renee?
Yes, sir.
David, you got anything else to add?
I'll just be very brief, and we're excited to be before you this evening, and the property is under new ownership, they had a new vision, and so just we're requesting an amendment to the approved PUD, and I would like to answer any further questions or comments that the board has.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
Any public comments?
Good evening, Commissioners. Mine is just a question. Pat Blackshear, just a citizen. On this one, I'm just trying to understand. This is a DRI and it's a PUD, but you're buying out preservation areas. So I'm trying to understand how this will apply across the board to other projects. Is this a preservation area that was in the DRI designated as preservation area that now you're allowing them to buy out? And that the second part of my question would be, if it's beyond, because the code and the plan is very strict about if it's greater than 10 acres. So are we going to start now just having a PUD and saying you can come to the board and ask for a deviation? And it wouldn't be a variance. That's not a typical PUD deviation. I'm just trying to understand for other clients and across the board. So,
As you notice, the PUD, there are allowable deviations as far as future projects that may come forward. Commissioner, it'd be a case-by-case basis. Each PUD, each development has their own merits, and they would have to show that there's merit to a buyout if there was one proposed in an additional time. So that's how I would answer that question, that it would be a case-by-case basis in our opinion.
But my other part of my question is, if it's a DRI and you have a set-aside as a preservation area, how can you buy that out without amending the DRI and changing that?
The state did determine that this was not a decrease in open space, which is what E2 is based on. So there was no decrease in open space for us not to do this as an E2 change.
Okay, that's what I did not hear, so thank you.
There's no decrease.
Any
in
other
open
comments?
space.
Alan Vaquera.
Alan, address the board.
I didn't hear that question, explanation she just gave.
When the applicant applies for an E2 change, it's reviewed by the state to see if there's a decrease in open space, because you can't do an E2 change if you're decreasing open space. And the state reviewed this and did not see this as a decrease in any open space or amount of preservation that would not allow that change, which is non-substantial. So it's a non-substantial change.
Did they already have the ability to do the buyout?
No, they did not.
But they're getting the ability to do the buyout now.
Yes, if they're approved. But it's limited to 5 acres. They cannot buy out any more than 5 acres.
Which is not typical of a project of this size.
That's correct.
So Renee, just a curious question. If they bought out the 5 acres, they're still in compliance with their open space requirements?
Well, they are doing a change.
Okay.
Even though it's not a notice of proposed change, they are amending their plan unit development. They are amending their DRI. This proposal was also sent to the state. They know what they're doing.
Right.
So it's not like it's something that we're not allowed to do.
I'm also got a little concern about this comment about there will be no future hearings on this, that all other changes will be considered small scale and therefore not brought back to the public. Well, what happens if they want to change something that's, shouldn't there be a limit on that? And not a broad brush, say you never have to bring it back no matter what you want to change?
Mr. Chairman, I think the issue with the minor developments coming forward, it had historically been a policy that when you have a conceptual plan, PUD, for example, any phases brought in were reviewed as minors. The code does not say that, and it says that they'll be brought back as majors. In this particular modification that they're requesting, it would not be brought back. It would go in front of the technical review committee, who would review all the technical requirements, engineering, and so forth. And in my opinion, with this development, it is very specific as far as what they're going to do. I am comfortable with the fact that their plans are detailed enough that we feel comfortable moving forward as a minor with their phases as they come forward. The TRC is open to the public. So if there's questions, someone could come to that. If there's changes from that, obviously if there's additional changes, that will need to come back before the board for those approvals. But as long as they move forward in accordance with what the board approves, then we feel like that's appropriate and that's something that we can administer fairly easily.
Any other public comments?
So you are saying...
Alan, come to the podium.
So you are saying that the plan as presented, if there's no change to that, then any minor tweaks of that is a minor. But if they went to do a major change, then it would have to come back before the board.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other public comments? Seeing none, what's the board's wishes?
Mr. Chairman, I propose that we approve with the proposed deviations, with the environmental conditions, and with the Planning Commission recommendations incorporated.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Chairman, that brings us to our last item on the agenda. It is Ecolead Homes LLC, petition for abandonment. This is located on US 98. It's in the Coastal Center land use. I believe Tim Whaler, one of our senior planners, is here to present this.
Thank you. Tim Whaler, Planning Department. The Ecolead LLC petition for abandonment. This is a petition for abandonment of 0.12 acres of right-of-way easement submitted by Walton, Kitcherson, PA. The site is located on the south side of US Highway 98, a quarter mile east of Scenic Gulf Drive. Earlier this week, we did receive some information regarding future DOT improvements in the area, and the agent has presented some information that we can discuss, and I believe we had some additional documentation submitted to you regarding those improvements, and there's a schematic in there as well that, like I said, the agent would like to review.
Mr. Chairman, on November the 5th, I received a letter from the Department of Transportation talking about their plan to do widening of the road going to 6 lanes, and it specifically includes the area that's under request right here. I have not received anything else but this letter from the DOT, which I have shared with the Planning Department so that they could make you aware of that. So I've gotten no response from DOT. What I'm concerned about is that much as we've done with regards to the 331 project, there was a request that DOT reconsider moving part by the Health Mark Hospital from the east side to the west side, and that if we were to abandon this, if the DOT came back and said that they were going to do something in that area, we will have precluded them from doing so. And like I say, all I have is a letter notifying me from DOT that this is an area that they're looking at right now, and that as far as I know, they don't have the official set of plans in place yet. So from that standpoint, I would not be in favor of granting an abandonment at this time.
Yes, sir. Come ahead.
Hi, Jeremy Cranford. I have been sworn with Walton, Kitcherson. We're a law firm out in Destin on Airport Road. I have here some emails, correspondence between myself and with the consulting. I'll have to get her name or title, but she was the general consultant project manager identified within that letter. I emailed her this morning to discuss it, and I have this correspondence that I'm going to provide, and they'll pass it across, and you'll be able to see.
They haven't said anything to me.
Okay.
Wait, and let me ask you, what is the urgency is if we need to get an official notification from DOT to the board, is there an urgency that's got to be done tonight?
Just trying to move forward with our project. We've been working on it for a while, and we'd like to move forward. But I'd really like to provide you these documents if I could, and you can review them at your discretion. You can choose to take them into account or not.
Well, I don't have a problem with you entering stuff here, but I'm just telling you is that I have nothing from Florida DOT, and my motion is going to be to table this. That's my motion is to table it at this time. To come back in the future when we get official correspondence from DOT to the Board of County Commissioners saying that they're either no problem with it or we go forward. But I just think it's premature without us being notified. I mean, we got the notification from DOT that this specific area is under review.
William Kitcherson, if I may.
Yes, sir. We got a motion on the floor right now. Do we have a second?
Can I ask the attorney a question?
Well, we need a second for it.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay.
Can we table it, or do we have to move it to a time certain?
You can table it. You need to table it. We can't. You do not table it to a time certain.
Okay.
Just ask, if I could just ask, it have to be brought off the table at a specific time. If I could just ask for you to take a look at the maps that have to do with this area. The project that's contemplated has to do with widening from 4 to 6 lanes. This deals with an area that's already 6 lanes. In addition, my correspondence with the general consulting manager is that the only thing that's going to be done in this area is resurfacing on existing right-of-way. They would not need additional right-of-way. That's the correspondence.
You also have in your package from the original application a letter from DOT saying that they claim no interest and have no further use for this particular piece of property. It's a 50-foot right. It's a 50-foot piece of land in front of, south of Highway 98, in front of the old Versailles Hair Salon. DOT in the original package has no interest in this land. Their consultant is saying that they're widening from 4 to 6 lanes. It's already 6 lanes. We would request you not motion to table this and approve it tonight, because that's our request to you, but you can do whatever you.
There's already been a motion and a second, and I'm just requesting the opportunity for us to be notified by DOT, to us, not via you coming to us. But since they notified us in writing about this plan, I'd like to have them come back and say to us specifically that this is not going to be an issue. I mean, we've already encountered stuff on 331 on the issue there about moving it from left to right, whether it goes north to south or whatnot. I just, if there's not an urgency, then I think we should wait until we get that official notification back.
Well, I think that that's putting an undue burden on the applicant. I mean, now we have to go track down DOT and get them to respond to a letter that they've already said that they don't have any interest in, and that's in your package.
I think we could track this down. If we're going to ask us to abandon a piece of property, the board should be the one tracking this down. I mean, don't they think that's, the board should be tracking,
It's our,
admin
it's our
should
right
be
of way.
tracking it down.
Admin should contact DOT
It's
and
our
ask
right of
for
way.
a letter.
There's a motion, call the question.
Yeah, but you don't go on.
Mr. Call the question.
Let's set it, we need to set it, you didn't have a time certain.
Well, we don't know when they're gonna respond.
Could you approve it contingent upon a letter from DOT saying that they have no interest in the land?
Not only DOT may not have it, but Walton County may have interest in the land. I mean,
Your own planning department has said you don't.
well, with all due
Let's-
respect, we love the planning guys, but, this is.
It's a landlocked
26?
This is,
26?
but it's property owned by the
That's
county,
2 weeks.
citizens of Walton County. I mean, we may not want to abandon it, that's just what I'm saying.
You've got your time.
I understand what your recommendation is.
2 weeks, next board, 2 weeks, next board meeting.
I understand. Right.
Even on tabling, you must put a.
But you've received no public comment. This has been, it's gone through all of the channels, all of the notices have been published.
The table must be to a time specific.
Yeah,
The next board meeting.
okay.
There's actually, I'm almost certain that there's nothing that can
We got it.
be based on the setbacks that are required by the county.
You've got a motion, a second, and I've called the question.
Okay, and it's time certain, you got
Time certain would be the
2
next
weeks.
board meeting, 2 weeks. It's
I
a little more than 2
will
weeks.
second.
We got
It's,
a
the
call for the
second board
question?
meeting in November.
26.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd also like information about, the land and, is it of any use
We
to
can-
something that we might need to do?
We can get our folks to look at that.
Pensions, utilities, I mean,
And just to be sure we're clear, you want admin to follow DOT.
Somebody needs to.
Okay.
Public
Public
works, get
Works.
public works to do it or
Planning,
something.
somebody. We just need a letter from them.
Where's his DOT letter?
This
Does somebody have a copy of that?
Are you, is the board taking
Thank you. Okay.
the initiative to get this letter from DOT? I need to be clear on this.
Yes,
Okay.
our staff is going to take care of it.
And it will be decided the 26th, and we are not
And
required to
we'll probably
put that
republish
pressure on.
notice and go to further expense.
Sir?
I'm arguing.
I'm asking questions.
We don't, we're gonna get the information and then we'll determine the 26th what we wanna do.
Mr. Chairman, the question Mr. Ketchers had asked is available. He asked, would he be required to republish? Because it's tabled to a time certain, no, he would not be required to republish.
Thank you, that's all I needed.
Okay. Yes, sir.
One question.
Does the county own this piece of land?
They do not. It's, currently.
Oh, so you're, okay, so the county doesn't own it, they just have an easement for it.
Right. Technically, there's.
I was gonna say, because if the county owned it, they shouldn't be giving it away.
There is not, yeah. It's, right now, it's just unassigned.
They're doing the same thing.
Okay.
Is that everybody?
Motion to adjourn?
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. We'll be adjourned.
think you said it will.
Jeff,
Did you get that?